The truth.
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 Welcome to Trusting the Truth with Samuel Tolley, where we view the world through the lens of Jesus Christ. We do not view Jesus Christ through the lens of the world. How you doing? This is Sam Tolley with Trusting the Truth. And today I have joining with me Emery McClendon and Keith Lewter. And we're going to discuss, are the Democrats communists? Some people might find the topic offensive. And we're not here to offend anyone. We're here basically to present evidence, to talk about the state of this country, and what we truly believe is a situation going on with the Democrat Party. Now, before I bring Keith and Emery into the fold, I want to share this 5-minute video that I think really explains where the Democrat Party is.
Hey there, history enthusiasts. Get ready for a thrilling journey through time and ideology as we uncover the disturbing similarities between America today and communist China. This isn't just a tale of two nations. It's a wake-up call, backed by survivors, scholars, and some jaw-dropping historical insights. Let's dive in. First up, meet Xi Van Fleet, a survivor of Mao's Cultural Revolution in China, who's sounding the alarm in her book, Mao's America, A Survivor's Warning. Having lived through Mao's chaos, she sees eerie echoes in modern America. In Mao's America, Van Fleet describes how Mao's regime obliterated tradition, silenced dissent, and turned youth into tools of revolution. Sound familiar? She points to America's cancel culture, identity politics, and the radicalization of education as modern parallels. On social media, at Van Fleet, she's tweeted, "Critical race theory is the American version of Mao's class struggle, dividing people to control them." Her first-hand accounts make it clear, this isn't theory, it's history repeating itself. Now, let's rewind to 1958 with W. Cleon Skousen's The Naked Communist. Skousen, a former FBI agent, listed 45 communist goals to undermine America. And folks, it's like he had a crystal ball. Here's a quick compare and contrast. Goal number 17, get control of the schools. Use them as transmission belts for socialism and current communist propaganda. Today, we see critical race theory and gender ideology in classrooms, shaping minds in ways Mao would approve. Goal number 20, infiltrate the press. With media bias leaning heavily one way, it's hard to argue this hasn't happened. Goal number 29, discredit the American Constitution. Ever hear it called outdated or oppressive? That's the playbook in action. Skousen's predictions aren't fully realized. America still has freedoms China lacks. But the overlap is chilling. Grab The Naked Communist and check the list yourself. It's like a roadmap we're halfway down. Next, let's weave in Manning Johnson, a former communist who exposed the game plan in color, communism, and common sense. Johnson, a black American, saw how communists exploited racial tensions, not for justice, but for chaos. He wrote, "The heavy hand of communism has stirred up racial strife, creating confusion, hate, and bitterness, so essential to the advancement of the Red Cause." Today's racial divisions, same tactics, new stage. Johnson's warning is clear. Division is a weapon, and we're seeing it wielded. Adding fuel to the fire, Edward G. Griffin, author of The Creature from Jekyll Island, nails the ideology behind it all. He said, "Collectivism is the political theory that states that the will of the people is omnipotent, that the rights of the individual are subordinate to the will of the majority. That's communism in a nutshell, and a warning for America's drift toward groupthink over liberty. Griffin also cautioned, the drive of the Rockefellers and their allies is to create a one-world government, combining super-capitalism and communism under the same tent, all under their control. Big words, bigger stakes. So, what's the story? America today isn't communist China. Not yet. We've got a constitution, free speech, and a fighting spirit Mao could never crush. But the parallels, cultural upheaval, educational indoctrination, racial division, and collectivist creep are too real to ignore. Van Fleet's lived it, Skousen predicted it, Johnson exposed it, and Griffin connects the dots. Here's the kicker. We can stop this plot twist. Dive into Mao's America, study Skousen's 45 goals, heed Johnson's lessons, and listen to Griffin. History's whispering. Let's not let it scream. Share this story, spark some debates, and keep freedom alive. Because if we don't, who will? Resources for the curious. She Van Fleet, Mao's America, A Survivor's Warning W. Cleon Skousen, The Naked Communist Manning Johnson. Color, Communism, and Common Sense. Edward G. Griffin, The Creature from Jekyll Island.
Well, gentlemen, let me bring us all up in here. I have my copy of Color, Communism, and the Common Sense. I have online The Naked Communists. I haven't read Chi Von Fleet's book. I think I'm gonna get it, and and I've had online the Monster from Jekyll's Island. I never quite finished it, but it's interesting. You know, when I ran into this morning, and like he's talking about the communist goals that W. Cleon Skousen, he actually read it into the congressional record. I think it was in 1963. So I think when you look at it, when particularly when he mentioned goal number 17, get control of the schools, use them as a transmission belt for socialism and current communist propaganda, soften the curriculum, get control of the teachers union, push the party line in textbooks. It seems to me clearly that our schools have been infiltrated. What do you have to say about that, Emery?
Oh, it's all absolutely true and proven. You know, some people try to push it off as a conspiracy theory. I've read all the books except for Miss Fleet's, but I've met her in person, and I've listened to several of her speeches in person and also online. But yeah, I've read all of Cleon Skousen's books and some other ones, Gary Caw, and then some of the other so-called conspiracy theories. Another good book, really good book, is The Unseen Hand. You ever heard of that one? And
No.
read that one. That's a very good book. It's a heavy book. It's thick. It's a lot of pages, but it breaks everything down, just like Cleon Skousen does. But it's absolutely, if you read those, especially in today's context, you can see that what they predicted back in those days, in the 70s and the 60s, has actually come to pass in a very rapid manner. And communism has infiltrated every branch of our government, including local government, your city government, your state government, your county government, your township government. And it's influenced the minds of almost all of our major universities, secondary universities. And now they brought it into our elementary schools and our secondary schools and high schools with the different educational theories that they've used. No Child Left Behind, DEI, and your other communist type what do you call it? The critical race theory, and all of those are all incorporated to help bring in communism. The people who run those theories have avowed that that's what they are. We are communists, and we were trained by communists, and they have no qualms about fulfilling the communistic goals.
Mm. What say you, Keith?
I exactly what Emery just said. And I've been trying to figure it out for the longest how they keep an influence on people from way back when, from Frank Marshall Davis to you name it, William Ayres. I'm still trying to figure out how they got a hold of people, whether it's Barack Obama or whatever, how they push their agenda, how they get the minds of men to actually take them and they get them to follow their program. It's sort of like a brainwashing, so to speak. It's like a power struggle, a power structure. When they do, it's just amazing. I'm not giving them credit, but how they can take a people and make a movement out of it, out of the agenda that they're pushing. I read the book called The Communist, and this book is written by, I wrote it down, Paul Kengor, Kengor. He's a PhD, and it's the untold story of Frank Marshall Davis, who's the mentor of Barack Obama. And so I don't know if you remember when Barack Obama came on the scene, was it the 2002 Democrat convention? When he made, or was 2000 or 2002, Bush was running. And he made that profound speech. And I remember my wife saying, oh my gosh, there's something up with this man. But he has the makings of being the first Black president. But that speech, and we look back now, we found out that his exact speech was one of the manifestos of Frank Marshall Davis, his mentor, which I guess we'll get into later. But to wonder how that's what captured the minds of America.
Wow. I remember people when Barack, I didn't watch the Democrat convention back then. And be honest with you, I rarely watched much of it. I let my wife suffer through that kind of stuff because I can't take it. But I remember all the hoopla over his speech during that time. And when I look back at stuff like that, it makes me think a lot of the naive Democrats, they look for, and maybe that's people in general, they look for style over substance, But once I started paying attention to Obama and I found out that many of his speeches was written by, I think, Bill Ayres and other people like that this guy, when he first started off, he wasn't, he could read a teleprompter great. He can read well and he can enunciate it well, but the stuff wasn't coming out of his brain. He didn't speak half as good as those speeches were. The speeches were eloquent, just like MLK's speech on the mall that was written by, I can't think of the guy's name. I think he was another. Well, anyway, that guy. But but anyway, when Obama started talking, just talking, when you knew what came out of his head, it was a little bit disjointed, and he became the master of filibustering. But I sort of strayed away from the topic. But yeah, these people, I think it goes back really, well, I know it goes back further than the 60s, because Manning talks about how in the 30s, when Stalin was really trying to push Black people against white people in the South for the communists, that these people were always about trying to infiltrate the schools, infiltrate the unions, infiltrate big business. It's just, we let our guard down as Americans. So what do you say? Emery?
Yeah. When you realize that most Americans, and especially most of the Black Americans during the time since the Reconstruction, were people who follow and people who were looking more for substance and something to entice them into a utopia. They didn't pay attention to substance. They didn't pay attention to words. They didn't. Some of them were slightly uneducated. If you want to use the word slightly, I think that's an understatement. But they just were swooned into receiving something from a leader or leaders that would advance them and elevate them to have things without having to work for them, without having to go out and do effort and so forth. So the thing became in the Black community, what the government can do for me. And then these guys, Obama, and believe me, like I think we mentioned the last time, this goes back even to the Albert Pikes and the Masonic movement and some other things back. They also moved us into this direction. And it didn't just start in the 60s and the 70s, but ever since this country has been founded, the Unchained Democrats have pushed this country or tried to push this country into a socialistic state. And you have the Woodrow Wilsons and you have the different other ones who came up, and especially during the Johnson era, who actually tried to push this nation through racial division, primarily because they knew that that was a big catalyst that could really cause Americans to go against one another. So they used the methods, and they perfected these methods, and they brought them into the media, into our churches, and that's a whole different conversation there, because one of the goals of communism also was to destroy your churches and religion and any belief in God, and have people believe in themselves and the government. And for once you can do that, you have them brainwashed and indoctrinated where you want them, because then you can lead them around by a noose on their neck anywhere you want them to go. And this has happened in the Black community, unfortunately.
So Emery, Keith, Skoson's goal number 27 said the following: infiltrate the churches, replace revealed religion with social religion, discredit the Bible, and emphasize the need for intellectual maturity, which does not need a religious crutch. It's pretty much what Emery was just saying.
Mm-hmm.
What is your thoughts on that?
He hit it on the nose. First of all, you go way back when this thing started. Way back, even if, okay, we can go 30s, 40s. That communist agenda, along with, he mentioned the I believe he almost touched bases on Freemasonry, and things like that. When you go back to the beginning, there was a goal that was set. That goal was, let's sanction everything that God forbids. If we can do that, then we cause division. What happens when we divide? Now we can conquer. That lesson should have been learned even with us back in slavery. That's how we became slaves. Until this day, we're mental slaves because of this same movement. When you take the word religion and you look at its full meaning and what it really means, I don't see any pastors that will preach on what that word means, because if they did, they wouldn't have a church. It means to bond, to tie up. Okay, I don't want to start preaching in here, but to tie up, to bind. And this is why God sent his son, because we're supposed to be free, not tied up, not binded. Okay, so even in the churches, I look, growing up as a born Baptist, raised as a Methodist, and I look, well, I'm like, okay, it's the fifth Sunday. We have Freemasons running the service, but not to get into what they're doing and putting down what they're doing. The idea was, along somewhere in that neighborhood, communism has a play even in the Black church. It has a play even in the world, well, the political world we're living in today. It's all about control. Because if I can control you, I'm going to keep you away from God. I'm going to keep you away from thinking for yourself. That's all it goes back to. And so I was thinking about Barack Obama's mother. When she was young, her school was actually infiltrated. And from what I was told, I'm trying to remember, it was a Black Theologian Society group, the same people that raised and taught Jeremiah Wright. Okay, she was like became the Hillary Clinton of her day. And so again, through communism, it was about control. So as she was raised, as she got older, she raised her son, Barack Obama, in school. His Catholic school, was infiltrated. One of the nuns taught him Arabic, okay, and taught him different speeches. If you listen to his speech, it talks about in 2000, and also he just did a video again. It talks about the taking over of government, of schools, of banking system. They're giving the same old speeches. You boil it down: control, control, control. If I can control you, I'm going to keep you from thinking for yourself. And that's what I see very clearly.
One thing I
Let
want
me add to that, if I can.
Go ahead, Emery.
What you were talking about was Black liberation theology, and James Cone, who hammered that into the Black church back during his time. And then those Black theologians that also subscribed to the German critical theory. And then they changed that into critical race theory in these modern times. But that's exactly right. You're absolutely right. And then people like Barack Obama got brought into all of this, trained in all of this, and then groomed to bring this in to destroy both the Black community and destroy the white community, and that he would put them at war against one another. Everybody was thinking this is going to be the president that brings America together. But all along, if you look at his agenda, he was splitting us further and further apart. And I was one of them that didn't fall for Barack Obama in 2000. I think it was 2002, like you said, when he came about, because I had followed him ever since he was in the Illinois legislature. And I knew what kind of a person he was. And I was doing research because I was debating a lot of proponents of the Black liberation theology. And I was teaching classes in my church about why Black liberation theology was so dangerous. And I, of course, ran into a lot of opposition. And a lot of Black preachers were picking up on this social theology and social justice and so forth, which is what they preach rather than godly justice. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
If I could just add one more thing to that right quick. What led me, and I got to believe what you just said, because if you look at everyone that gotten into that movement, from Jeremiah Wright on, even Al Sharpton, I'll even throw him in the mix. Okay. Yep. You could see it clearly because they forgot one thing. They stopped introducing Jesus Christ. Dr. King did the same thing. Again, I know a lot of people don't want to hear it. They stopped introducing Jesus Christ. Why? Because we already had a way to go. Communism was the way to go. Division was the way to go. If I preach Christ, I'm going to preach now it's going to be togetherness, coming together. That's not the goal of communism. It's about dividing. I can't conquer if I got everybody working together. Can't conquer. Okay. And so there you go. I don't want to go too far there, Sam. I might keep going, but go ahead.
No, that's all right. I want to make one thing clear, though. This is not a non-theological podcast. I believe that religion and government controls every aspect of our life, and either your theology is going to govern your politics, or your politics is going to govern your theology. And as a man of God, my theology has to govern my politics. So I'm not one to say, well, we don't talk about God here. We talk about God here because God is here and he's in control of everything. If we, in fact, believe in him, we have to put him at the forefront. As a matter of fact, he gave us principles to live by, and we wouldn't be in the trouble that we're in as a nation if we adhere to those principles. I think it was John Adams that said that this Constitution is only fit for a moral people, something to that effect. And if you really think about what him and other founding fathers said, if we allow socialism and communism to take over this country, this Constitution is not fit for it at all. No. It won't work. And unfortunately, many of us in the church have allowed the enemy to not only creep from around us, but within us. And now it's like a cancer that we have to eradicate. Let me look at, I'm looking at some of the rules. Some of the goals of the Communist Party that Cleon Clausen addressed. Number 26 said, present homosexuality degeneracy, and promiscuity as normal, natural, and healthy. These are communists. And if you think about it right now, you don't see this drag queen crap going on in Russia and
Those
China
countries.
that is going on here. This is a goal that they wanted us to do. I remember, and I'm gonna let you guys talk in just a second. I want to get this out. I remember seeing a video, and I had it before President Trump came into office, of this naval vessel that had a drag queen show on a dadgum naval ship where this naval person was dressed up like a woman. This degeneracy in our military. So let's go back to you, Emery. What do you got to say about goal number 26?
I agree with Cleon. He's absolutely right, and that's why we see the push today with drag stuff in schools, your gender transformation of our children, and also the making the normalcy of choosing to be who you want to be based upon your own feelings. However, we both know, all of us sit here today on this show, we know that it's not their choosing, the children's choosing. They're being pushed into this. They're being indoctrinated into what those communists want them to be, and then they're taking this into their lives, and then they're being confused so much that they accept it. And then they tell them to hide this stuff from your parents. Don't let them know what's going on. And then when the parents finally do find out, it's almost too late and they've lost their children, and it's hard to bring them back. And then we find, on the other hand, like you said, they've infiltrated the churches so much that it's taboo to talk about these things in the church, except to say that it's social justice and that we need to be inclusive. We don't have to be inclusive of anything. Jesus wasn't inclusive. God's not inclusive. He said there were certain things that thou shalt not do, especially in the 10 Commandments. And then if you go on, as we keep the edicts of the New Testament and the things that Paul and all of the other apostles wrote, none of those things, which are all abrogant sins, did God want us to follow. He wanted us to follow holiness. And he said, without that, no man will see the Lord. Mm-hmm. So we must, in our lives, continually push God in the true form through Jesus Christ and what it means to have eternal salvation into our children's hearts, into our communities, because the nation that forgets God will fail. So, yeah, those goals have been around, and they're being pushed more and more and more. And it's funny that you mentioned the ship, and then you mentioned, there's also military bases that were trying to do this stuff, and some of them succeeded. But thank God they're being pushed away now, and things are going back to normal. Where one of the things that really perturbed me during the Biden administration and during some of the earlier Democrat administrations were how they were pushing this changing sexes and having it paid for with military budget rather than using that money to defend our country and to make our military better. As a matter of fact, what they were doing was taking away our defense spending and putting it into social stuff, where you could travel across state lines in the military and taxpayers would have to pay for your sex change operation, for your abortions and so forth, anywhere you wanted to go in the country. Thousands and thousands and millions of dollars being wasted on something like that. And our military was being torn apart as far as military readiness.
So, Keith, is promiscuity and degeneracy normal, natural, and healthy?
Neither. Let's go back to Barack Obama. A lot of Black people got upset with him and said, well, he didn't do anything for us. And I'm one of them that says that. But that was never his goal. He never promised Black people anything.
Right.
His goal was to push the homosexual agenda. Let's go back to Frank Marshall Davis. Here's a man that was a journalist, an activist, a poet, wrote for several newspapers. And as a hobby, they said he was bisexual. He had a hobby of doing paintings of little boys, naked boys. For some reason, that was his thing. I think Barack Obama was about 12 years old, maybe. Barack Obama's grandfather sent Barack Obama to live with him for about 2 or 3 years. He was to mentor Barack Obama. And you have to think back and go, okay, if this man likes to draw pictures of naked boys, why am I sending my grandson to him?
Mm.
Okay. So as Barack Obama got older, and of course, here we are today, the goal was to push the gay agenda. He told America, no marriages between a man and a woman. But when he got into the office a month later, you know what? Michelle and I was talking. It's okay. It's nothing wrong with man being with man. They asked him about abortion. When does life begin? Well, that's above my pay grade. He gets into office. You know what? That's not a human until it comes out of the womb. Well, what about it being a human? Well, when it comes out of the womb, okay, you can let it lay there on that dish and die. Then they kept pushing it even further. So then you had Tim Walz come up and said, wait a minute, okay, let's go even a step further. You got up until 9 months to decide what you want to do with that baby when it comes out of the womb. Wow. So they didn't just take it where it was terrible. They pushed it to where it was sadistic. We I know we won't do it today, but we could even get it in the Bible and tell you with these satanic sacrifices and everything, where they take place and where it has a place in it. We are blind to this because they're not going to tell America what it's really about. But when you dig into it, that's what it boils down to. Communism has its evil forces within it itself. It's evil. The things that are done in it is evil. And we had a president that embraced this. I look back at Dr. King. I look back at, let's go back to Margaret Sanger. This is a lady that designed a program to kill Black babies. She didn't have the money to do it, but Bill Gates' dad funded her. Since 1973, over 21 million Black babies were aborted, were killed in the womb. But when you think about that, I look back and I go, wait a minute, Dr. King, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton got the Margaret Sanger Award. So, Sam, if somebody gave you the Margaret Sanger Award and you accepted it, I'm going to question, wait a minute, Sam.
No, thank you.
It's designed
you must believe in what they
right. She designed a program to kill Black babies. This is all fall into communism now. Mm-hmm. And Dr. King and everybody embraced this, accepted an award for a lady that says, here's a people that should be, burnt like weeds, terminated, exterminated. Again, communism. And how do these people accept an award and keep going without discussing it or even talking about it? Now they didn't even recognize it as a baby. But you get to Trump, and Trump says, God says life begins at conception, but we don't want to embrace what he said. Life begins at conception. And so it's just,
one of the reasons why that happened is through incrementalism. The Democrats and the communists and the progressives, they knew how to use incremental doctrine to bring all of this stuff in a little bit at a time. And what that does is it made the weak people and those who will not do their own research, those who will not go back and look at what's right or wrong, accept it because it was brought in little by little and made to be accepted. So as the incrementalism became more and more aggressive in these times and more open, people accepted it because they didn't want to be bothered with it. And not only that, but because they had already been warmed up to what was coming.
But I guess I don't understand how did these people get so strong that they can even use ignorance and our people still pay attention? For example, the boycott. You had Jamal Bryant. Okay. Don't shop at Walmart or Target. Don't shop there on Friday. Go Thursday or Saturday. Okay. Sorry about that. Go Thursday or Saturday. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, Walmart and Target, they're going to do their thing on Monday when they do their accounts receivables, accounts payables on Monday. They're going to look and say, we still got the money, whether they went Thursday or Saturday. But our people looked and said, yeah, we're going to boycott. What did you get out of it? Did you just skip Friday?
Well, I'll
and
give you
our ignorance
made it better.
Yes. And
made
so
it better
it's like,
for them.
all that guy did was they did it for control's sake.
Yep. And they get to do it. A couple of reasons why they get away with this stuff is because of goal number 20 and 21. Goal number 20, infiltrate the press, get control of book
Media.
review assignments, editorial writing, policy making decisions. And 21, gain control of key positions in radio, TV, and motion pictures. So when you have a society that is not driven by what thus saith the Lord, but is
Thank you.
driven by the culture. And if you, and many times in Hollywood, they're constantly trying to frame the culture. That's why these people are willing to lose millions of dollars on movies that nobody wants to watch, because they're trying to frame the culture by inserting their woke theology or whatever nonsense it is that they're trying to get us to think like. And unfortunately, when they took the Bible out of the schools, I think it was in '62, and prayer in '63, or the reverse. I think it was the reverse. Prayer went out first, and then the Bible. We started having a society that was built on sinking sand, and there was nothing stable, even for the non-believers, to stand on. So they start bringing in their theology, like I said, incrementally. I'll never forget a sermon that I heard many years ago that I had a tape of that I lost. But the essence, this preacher said that the devil gets control of people through small compromises, and them small compromises, like you said, that incrementalism eventually comes down like a flood. And one of the things that the most recent example of it that I can think of it was during the nomination process of Ketanji Jackson Brown, when she was asked, "What is a woman?" And she said that she couldn't answer it. And people let her get away with that, not realizing the significance of that statement. She knew full well what a woman is, but she didn't want to get locked down in it because she wanted to have the flexibility to say some dude that thinks that he's a woman can be a woman. And society, we as a society should have demanded, and Senator Blackburn should have demanded, if you don't know what a woman is, how can you govern one? And we as a society shouldn't let people get away with this nonsense.
Sam, you mentioned one thing. You said the media.
I'm sorry?
What you had mentioned when you first started, you mentioned what was going on and how the media, basically what they're doing. As you know, I grew up 20 minutes away from Donald Trump, where his home was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I remember June 15th, 2015, when he came off that escalator. Okay. A lot of people didn't realize it, but the media, the new journalists coming in, they were all warned, you will not mention or report or write anything positive about this man. You want to talk about control of media? You have never, I tell people all the time, you've never seen a picture of Trump's office, the real office. You've never seen the credenza that goes around the wall in his office, and it's full of trophies and awards. And 80% of it probably says something like, for your outstanding work in the Black community. You don't see those. You don't see the contracts that he has signed to help and loans. You don't see the contracts that he has signed and the loans that he has given out to Black men to open up their own business, whether it was a restaurant or a barbershop or whatever. You don't see this. You don't see some of the Black women he's dated. You don't see about the Black children that came home from college that he said he turned them back around and said, go back, gave them the money. And another thing you've never seen him in a courtroom suing anybody for the money that he's given them. And this media controls this and says, you will not report anything positive. When I talk to people, they go, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I've never heard of that. Media, they're not allowed to report it.
That's right.
Even today, they do the same thing. And you'd have to look hard or go on some really conservative or Black website to find out his relationship with Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, and all the other so-called social justice Black pimps. They loved him when he was a Democrat or professed Democrat, and he was helping them, and they could come to him with their hands out and he would help them. and all along they were lying to him and just being a part of him because of his richness and so forth, and because he carried that D behind his name. But as soon as he switched and said, hey, look, I woke up, I've learned that America is a country that we should love and that we should cherish and that we should try to make great again, they all switched and hightailed it. And then all of a sudden, everything became negative about Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Well, he knew. I mean, if you think about it, it wasn't even so much of him wanting to be a Democrat or wanting to be a Republican. It was about him wanting what was best for the United States
American.
and
Right.
the American people. This is a man. The people always talk about how he's for the rich, but this is a man that always intuitively understood the average man. That's why when he even did the McDonald's thing, you know he's a billionaire, but you can still identify with him.
Mhm.
You can identify with him in the trash truck
He-
because he appealed to the average man. He didn't come off like an elite, you know, that he is. And I think many of the elite hate him because of the fact that he abandoned the rightful position that he's supposed to have, whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, because he's looking out for the American citizen.
I think that's what burned a lot of people or upset them. He didn't embrace conservatism or liberalism or Democrat or Republican. He didn't embrace those things. He saw something that needed to be done and said, this is the right thing to do. And that was his goal. As they say, America first. He puts America even before politics. He does that. He did that.
Yeah.
And
He embraced the Constitution and the American dream.
Exactly. People want to put him in a room where he's saying it's Republican against Democrat or it's conservative against liberalism. That's not. He doesn't do that. And so and the other side, again, the Democrats, they want that argument. They want to have communism or communist, whatever that name, put up front and say, okay, bring on what you got. But that's not his fight. That's not how he fights.
Well, I want to mention these last couple. Well, not the last, but I wanted to mention these two other goals of the Communist Party, number 40 and number 41, and get you guys a response to them. Number 40, discredit the family as an institution. Encourage promiscuity and easy divorce. Number 41, emphasize the need to raise children away from the negative influence of parents. Attribute prejudices, mental blocks, and retarding of children to suppressive influence of parents. Now, as Christians, we all know that the first institution God created was the family. So this seems like a direct opposition to God from a satanic mentality, the destruction of the family. So parents have what they're saying, prejudices and mental blocks, and are a negative influence and destruction of the parent. It amazes me that so-called Christians can't see through this. What say you on this one, Emery?
You know, parental authority is one of the backbones of the United States of America and the world as far as morality is concerned. So therefore, the progressives, the communists, socialists, whatever you want to call them, that was one of their main goals all throughout time, was to destroy that, to destroy brotherly love. There you go with Cain and Abel. And then if you follow the story of Nimrod back in the Old Testament, you'll see that their goal was to destroy the unity of mankind, to destroy the authority of God, and to bring man to the forefront, which is exactly what communism tries to do. So what I say to all of that is that the communism wants to break down our families. It wants to break down parental authority and make our children disrespectful for authority, especially parental authority. You know, I've heard people teach kids in some of these classes that be suspicious of what your parents teach you. Let us know what's going on, but also don't take it seriously because they're old-fashioned and outdated in their principles. And then they introduce the new communistic principles through DEI, through the SEIS, I can't think of what it means now, the initials, even though I've written all kinds of stuff on it. Um, uh, and they're teaching all this stuff in these schools, and then they're telling these kids, keep this stuff from your parents and keep the parents under suspicion, and let us know exactly what they're teaching you. But you can't accept this anymore because it's old-fashioned and outdated.
Sounds just like Hitler's youth group. What do you guys say for this, Keith?
The strongest institution in the world is still family. I look back at us, our people. Where were we before the civil rights movement? Before the civil rights movement?
Amen.
Over 70% of our children were born mom and dad. Dad was home, went to church, believed in God. Okay. Sin was no excuse. Okay. After the civil rights bill, after LBJ, what happened? Still today, over 70% of Black children are born out of wedlock. Look at the percentage of what's going on in our jails. President Trump did a program, and again, they kept it hush hush. Prison reform program where he started getting Black men out of jail. Got them jobs, but what was the secret thing that he did? He sent them home to their families. When they went home to their families, their wife, girlfriend, child, and they were home as a family, not one of those men reoffended. The power of family, okay? Not one reoffended. And so communism, you got to break up that family. Because once you divide, then you conquer. So they said, you had Kamala wanting to take it a step further and say, okay, this time around with abortion, okay, if she's 13 or 14 years old, she's telling mom and dad, it's none of your business. Your daughter can go get it aborted at 13, 14. It's none of your business. If little Johnny, 8 years old, decides he does not want to be a little boy anymore, that's his decision. Again, you're breaking up the head, the leader of the family. When you do that, you start destroying. Destruction comes in. So now we look and we take these 8-year, 9-year-olds, 15-year-olds. Now you go into the schools. Well, what do you? How do you identify yourself? They, thee, them, her, them. And I talk to some of them. They get mad when I say, well, according to the Bible, it's an evil thing to define yourself as a they, or Satan defines himself as a they and a them. So we see where it's going there. Family is still the strongest institution, and that's something for some reason on the left. That's the very thing they want to break up. What got Donald Trump back in the White House? Family. They came back. Families. They got together at the dinner table and said, we can't do this anymore. We can't afford another 4 years of this. And that's family. What LBJ said? Okay. He took it the other way around. I won't repeat it, but you know what he said. Okay. And he's been doing good for 60 years. It's been going. But that's what brought the structure back. And of course, Trump knew that. And he fine example of what it's all about.
Yeah, LBJ got about another 140 years to go.
Got 140 years to go, but so far he might be batting 1,000, but it's family that brought it back.
Oh,
Sam.
Man. I think we can look at one more goal, number 32. Support any socialist movement to give centralized control over any part of the culture, education, social agencies, welfare programs, mental health clinics, etc. And then, of course, this last administration let multiple millions of people into this country, put them up in hotels, put them up in the schools, spent billions of dollars on these folks. We all know that they brought them in here because one side want to get more votes so they can stay in perpetual power, and many others want to get free or lower cost labor so they can make some money. But the American people are the ones that are getting truncated, squeezed out. And of course, we got AOC and Bernie Sanders with the Green New Deal, which I think Trump is trying to get rid of. Of course, now he's fighting a whole battle with the judiciary. These people are determined to destroy this country unless we put a stop to it. So now I'm going to ask you guys recommendations. What do you think Americans should do at this point in time? Starting with you, Emery.
I think, first of all, Trump is on the right track, what Americans should do, and that is get rid of the social emotional learning in our schools and in our communities. That theory and those doctrines have torn up our communities because it's turning our morals upside down. Secondly, the war on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Telling a person that you have no worth because of who you are and that you should be the enemy of the other people around you simply because they're a different color than you are is wrong. And that causes division, and that causes us to be divided against one another, not only through hatred, but also through your skin tone. So what we need to do is educate and educate and educate our children first and foremost in our homes, in our schools, in our communities, throw out all these bad doctrines, get rid of the Department of Education, and begin to solidify correct morals, constitutional values, and teach our kids civics and what it means to be an American and what the American dream is. The American dream doesn't mean that you sit back and rely on the government, but it means that you take pride in yourself, you take pride in your community, and that you let God lead you into the direction to be the best that you can be in whatever you want to do and succeed in this country. That's what we need to do. We need to get this back, turn our churches back around, get rid of these liberal, no good for nothing, charlatan type preachers, and replace them with people who will get in the pulpits and teach the truth of the Word of God.
Well, Keith, did Emery leave you anything?
I'm trying. I might have to get out a dustbuster and see what I can get. No, he hit it on the nose. It goes back to this. The one scripture says, "Blessed is the nation whose God is our Lord," and then the second one, I guess it's 2 Chronicles 7:14. Is it? God,
if my people,
okay, called by my name. We just that simple scripture there is the only thing we have to do. They're trying to push us and pull us away from God. And like I said, the worst thing I'm seeing is it's the church. The black church, we need to have a whole show on that. That's a whole conversation. I'm sure Emery will eat that one up, but it's there. We're living in a time where they got to get us away from God. That's their goal. Get us away from him. Get us away from the message. It's infiltrated our churches where they don't even want to preach the truth anymore. I had someone ask me, well, Keith, we're thinking about having you come up and speak out, and we want you to speak at our church. I'm like, no, you don't. Well, why not? Because of what I have to say. Well, what would you say? The truth. Okay, the truth. We've gotten away, very simple, from the truth. We're ashamed of it. Okay, and churches, the preachers, even your televangelists, 80% of them don't want to do it. They're signed on to oaths to do other things. And so, it's like Second Chronicles 7:14, that's the answer.
Amen.
Exactly. Very simple. Like you said, very, very simple.
Mm-hmm.
And, Jesus taught that all along. He said, ye shall know the truth. The truth shall make you free.
Mm-hmm.
He said that I come to give you life, that you might have that life more abundantly. And it was simple truth, faith and belief in me, and to spread that love to others. He said, by this shall all men know that you're my disciples, because you have love for one another. But what they're teaching today is hatred for one another.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they got this form of religion, but are denying the power of men. So, gentlemen, we are about to end. I'll give each of you a minute if you want to address the people and say one closing thing, contact or anything. So you can go first, Emery.
I just want to say that I think Americans need to sit down, begin to research, begin to study for themselves, and look at what's going on around you and assess the situation and say, is this the direction that I want myself to go, that I want my family to go, that I want my children to go? And most importantly, is it the direction that I want my country to go in? And how do we fix that? Think about these things within your own mind and ways that you can rectify how we can fix it. And the chief concern that I have, and the chief method that I know that is absolutely true that we can fix this, is if we turn our faith back to the way that it used to be and turn our hearts toward God. This is what we need in America. And I think that if we sit down and assess these situations, you'll come to the same conclusion. And people are turning around. We're seeing a great number of people who are looking at things differently than what they used to. And I think we need to continue to do this, exhort one another, comfort one another, and teach each other more and more so that we will be proud to teach the truth rather than error.
Okay. How about it, Keith?
You're going to have to start picking me first because he steals the thunder.
Next time I get you two on, you go first. I was thinking about, dang, I got to keep going behind Emery. Emery keep just taking it.
He took it.
I apologize.
We are not, we're not lost, even as a country. We're going to be okay. It's a simple thing. Just turn back to what worked. It was God. And we got to do that. We're not perfect. I don't know anybody that's perfect. I know I'm not. But I think the beautiful thing is that no matter what direction I'm in, if it's the wrong direction, it's the confidence of knowing just turn back. Even in this country, just turn back. We got a president he's questioning his own faith, but it's the idea that he says, when I turn this way, everything seems right. If I'm looking at God's way of doing things, it's right. And so that's all we as a country need to do. Just go back to doing what was right. That's, plain and simple, and turn back to God. Other than that, I don't know. I can't give any other advice than that.
Amen. All right, fellas, you hold on while I close this thing out. So don't hang up on me. All right. We gave you the information, folks. We gave you stuff that you can study, stuff that you can research. But my prime advice is to research on your own. We're not infallible. We make mistakes. But we love the Lord and we love the United States of America. And we want what's best for this country. It's not about us being Republicans or being Democrats. It's about us being Americans. But more importantly, it's about us being lovers of the Lord Jesus Christ and God's word. And that's what we stand for. That's what we're going to always stand for. But we will not stand for communism. We will not stand for the destruction of this nation. We will not stand for evil in any form. And we will not allow pride to prevent us from doing what's right. Or ostracism or people disfellowshipping us or turning their hearts away from us as friends or family. We're going to stand up for truth because the Bible is clear. Know the truth and the truth will set you free. And we're only here for a short period of time. We're fighting for eternity for all of us. God be with you.